What's up, YouTube? It's your man coming back at you one more time. I want to discuss some things about staying in frame. Right? What does that mean, staying in frame? Don't let anyone knock you off your pedestal, knock you out of your box. Right? Before we get started, if you guys get the like button, share this video, subscribe, comment. Any of those things will help me grow in the YouTube stream. We're all in this together, and I really appreciate any help you can get. But anyway, Anyway, what I want to talk about today is staying in frame. So what does that mean, staying in frame? As a man, you have to be conscious of the attempts to get you to act out of character, right? Well, and that's what I think we're missing in our with our youth today, and overall in society. What you see out there in the streets is emotional men, right? And I made a video about this years ago, but are young men too emotional? They're always getting out of character, or I ain't gonna say out of character, because sometimes it seems to be their character to be emotional and to overreact to situations that really are minuscule in comparison to the overall grand scheme of life, right? What I mean by that, I stated in a video previously, like how stupid it was to get into a fight, or get into altercations over someone stepping on your shoes in a crowded club, right? So you're in a club, you come out there, everybody's in there, you really don't have a lot of room to move around. And someone steps on your shoes, and in the black community, that was always a big sign of disrespect because of how much money people spent on shoes. In all actuality, very rarely, if any of the time that somebody stepped on your shoes, was it intentional, right? So now you're willing to throw away your life for something unintentional, and minuscule in the grand scheme of things. Like, think about it at this particular point in your life, whoever you are. How many pair of shoes have you had in your life? You probably don't even remember. Probably can't count. But you can tell me how old you are. You can tell me, the month you're born. You can tell me all these things about your life. But you can't tell me how many shoes you have. So what I mean by that, right? A pair of shoes is such a small, insignificant part of your life for you to throw away however many years you have on this earth, whether that end up being in jail, physically injured, or God forbid, losing your life over something that was so small, and that extend to any other slight forms of disrespect. Because each day, each year we have 365 days, right? So let's take this one bad day you had, and let's chunk that up into 24 hours. So you're telling me you're willing to throw away the rest of your year, the rest of the years you have, for one bad hour on one bad day. And I think you have to think about that on a grand scale of things, right? It's very small and just not worth it. It's worthless to throw away your lives. And I think too many people are in the grave or in the prison cell over something that could have been avoided, or this is where it says, I say, staying in frame. I used to have a friend of mine who, him and his lady would always argue, and I was like, the worst thing you could do as a man is argue with a woman, right? Because your logic is not going to convince them, convince them that you're right? So I can apply a lot of logic into an argument, right? The fact that we're arguing and not conversating or having a discussion or debate means that all logic is out the window for her. This particular conversation, this argument is all about emotion, and you don't win an argument by providing logic. You win an argument by dealing no blows. And even if you have a point and she concedes the point, but she'll move the goalposts. And you're having a conversation. Let's say it's you're saying that time you did this, right? Your the counterpunch to that is I feel like. And once a person starts saying they feel like, all your logic goes out the window, because perception is their reality. All right. And if I say, hey, I need help with XYZ, and the response is, well, I feel like, I shouldn't have to, or I feel like because I do XYZ that, I shouldn't have to do this or that and the third, right? And once you start getting to the I feel likes, or I find it funny that, you've already lost the argument. So there's no point in arguing at that point. And the more emotional you are, the more likely you are to lose the argument and lose your cool and end up saying or doing something that you're going to regret. And this is what I used to convey to them. Like, you have to stay in your frame. As a masculine man, we don't do arguing. Right? So why don't men do arguing? Right? Because like the great KS used to say, men talk to each other in a certain way because there's always a low level threat of violence. Right? If I start talking to you crazy and you start talking to me crazy, like these arguments are, and that's another reason why women can get away with arguing and saying a lot of things, because if you're a masculine man, you shouldn't be putting your hands on them, right, in an argument. And so they'll say some of the nastiest things ever, to get a rise out of you, because they don't have that same level of threat of violence from a real man. There's a lot of discussion about what a real man is. I don't think a lot of the things that women say what makes a real man, as a real man, I think a lot of things they say what makes a real man, especially when you're out here in the internet streets, are things that makes a man submissive to the will of a woman. What I think makes a real man in this particular regard is not using your masculine to overcome her femininity, right? And what I mean by that, so you using violence to win an argument with a woman means you're not a man to me. If you have to use violence because a woman has hurt your ego, or you have to use violence to get your point across, or you have to use violence for any means, that any physical response to a non-physical situation, I don't think that's masculinity at all. It's just my opinion. I think that's what makes a man, is being able to stay in frame, right, and recognize their argument for what it is, and realize that if the person's able to disrespect you, in a really deep and offensive way, that the best thing for you to do is to remove that person out of your life, right? If someone's continually disrespecting you, someone's continually to disregard your feelings, and this goes for both people, but both genders, somebody continuously disrespect you, continuously shows little regard for how you feel about a situation, and you don't matter to them. The course is not to argue with them and can try to convince them to care, or to physically assault them to get them to respect you. The best course of action, and I think 99 out of 100 times the only course of action, is to remove them out of your life, right? Because if you can't respect me as a person, then why do I continue to associate myself with you? That goes for family or anybody. No one gets a pass to talk to you any type of way and treat you any type of way just because of their position to you or their relationship to you. I don't care who you are: children, mother, father, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend. I don't care who it is. I think that's important to have those boundaries, which allows you to stay in frame. Having strong and enforceable boundaries helps you stay in frame a lot of times, because what will keep you, will get you out of character, right? So if I have a boundary that, hey, I don't like this particular, this particular activity from a person, right? When they do that, hey, I need to go ahead and remove myself, right? Because if I stay with this person or stay around this person and they continue to do this activity, then I'm going to feel more and more disrespected, which can cause me to get out of frame. So the easiest way to stay in frame is to remove yourself from those situations and remove those people from your life. It's the easiest way. Trying to conform someone to how you think is a recipe for disaster. Not everybody's going to think the way you think, and not everybody's going to see things your way. So your primary focus is to deal with people who are aligned to the way you think. They're going in the same direction you're going, and there's minimal conflict when it comes to convincing them that your way is the better way. And I'm not trying to tell you, if anybody jumps to my comments and says, oh, you're talking about controlling. No, I'm talking about setting boundaries for, dealing with you as a person. I don't believe in telling anybody what to do. I'm just going to tell you what I expect of you if we were going to be in a relationship. All right. These are the behaviors that, I appreciate from my partner. And, if you're not willing to abide by those particular, by those directions, then, I think it's best that we don't be together. No ill will, no hard feelings. I'm not going to try to, complain, moan, do all that fussing. No, I'm going to observe behaviors, and if those behaviors don't align with where I'm going with my life or what I want out of this particular relationship, then I got to go ahead and chuck the deuces. It's okay. There's 8 billion people in the world. So there's plenty of people that you can meet in the future that may, be more aligned with your path in life. There's too many people holding on to too many things that just are not for them, right? That's what you see in a lot of relationships. We've been together for so long. Well, why the heck were you together in the first place? Because, if you're on the outside looking in, you guys weren't compatible. You tried to force the issue, which created a lot of toxicity and conflict. And then every time, when there was opportunities for you to leave the situation, you're like, we got this going on, we got that going on, and, I don't want to leave because of X, Y, Z. And the situation continues to get worse until it hits a boiling point where, the whole relationship is irreparable, and there's a such thing as irreconcilable differences, because you decided, I'm going to just hold on to a person that continuously pushes me out of my frame and character, that makes me resent who I am when I'm with them, or makes me resent them for the changes that I made. And that's the other thing, staying in frame. I'm glad I brought this, but this will be one of my last points. I'm going to wrap this video up. I don't want it to go too long. Staying in your frame, meaning being true to who you are. Not stepping outside of your masculine frame. And that also means if you meet someone, have the decency and the accountability to realize that you may not be for them because of where you are in life. Sometimes we are with people who are healed and we're very unhealed. And we try to create scars or open up new scars with them because of our unhealed nature. Have enough accountability to look and tell someone, look, I'm not for you. I know it's hard because sometimes, the light shines bright on people and you want to be a part of that. And it's hard to, have accountability to yourself and say, hey, I have my own journey I need to work on. But, have that accountability. Have that conversation with yourself and say, and I think I said this in previous videos, yes, that may be who you want. And that, you think that's who you deserve, but do they deserve you? Meaning, out of all the good things they've done, should they deserve someone who's less than? No. You haven't worked on yourself. You haven't healed yourself. You haven't, centered yourself. But you want this person who's on another level than you to reach down and take you up to the next level. And that's unfair for them. It's unfair. It's unfair for you because now you're going to resent them, because if you presented a facade to get with them because you weren't who you present yourself to be to get with them, because if they known who you were, they probably wouldn't have accepted you. Have the decency to say, you know what? Yeah, they deserve better than me. Either they deserve better than me or they deserve the best version of me. Either one, I can't present at this point. But these are just some topics I was thinking about on my way home. Thank you guys for listening so far. If you could do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe button for me, comment if you agree with any of this or you had some insight you want to drop into the comment section. We're all in this together, so if you guys can do that for me, I'll talk to you next time.